So we definitely are trying to get the word out about the assistance we could provide. We're very pleased to welcome you to tonight's in-person information session. And I want to say how pleased we are to partner with these amazing people on the stage. St. Louis County, Just Moms STL, especially Dawn and Karen, and the Office of Senator Josh Hawley to support the residents in the St. Louis region who are seeking information about RECA. We greatly, and I know you do too, appreciate the work that has led up to this moment. And we know that people often look to the library for answers, and we're here to serve as an access point for all of you for information and to ease the path forward to thousands of residents in St. Louis County. In addition to thanking our partners, I want to thank some of the amazing employees at the St. Louis County Library, some of which you are going to hear from tonight. Megan Pfeiffer Davis, the Manager of Information Services, and Brent Trout, the Manager of History and Genealogy, as well as the library's Deputy Director, Eric Button. He's in the back of the room. These three individuals quickly raised their hand and stood up to support all of you and the thousands of others in our region in about 72 hours. They put these together. So let's give them a huge round of applause. They have created some amazing information that is located on our website, and they have educated all of our other amazing employees in all 20 of our branches who are poised to help you as well. Since we started promoting these information sessions, I cannot tell you, I have heard from friends, community partners, and strangers about their personal experiences growing up in North County. It just really hit home to me how widespread this issue is, and there are people that I know that had no idea that have been impacted, and I wanted to give you a couple of examples. I had a text message last night that said, from someone who said, as someone who grew up in Florissant near the creek and attended Janet Elementary, thank you for sharing this information. And then just today, someone emailed me and said, as a kid whose parents worked to clean up several radiation Superfund sites around St. Louis, I'm beyond grateful that SLCL is offering RECA information sessions. This is an absolutely brilliant way to serve the community. So I know you all feel the same way, so I am turning this over to, I think, Dawn and Karen, right, who you all know as the amazing co-founders of Just Moms STL. Let's give them a round of applause.
I think we're going to take.
You want to take the microphone? Okay. Do you want to stand? Okay.
Let me check and see if this works. It does. So, first of all, hello everybody, good evening. Thank you for coming out on a Friday evening. Thank you to St. Louis County Library. This is our second, and this one is in person tonight, but the feedback that we're getting from the presentation that Brent and the library staff are going to be giving you later is just incredible. I think that having the library as a resource is really going to knock down some barriers and make this hopefully easier and attainable for you all. As Megan said, my name is Dawn Chapman. This is Karen Nickel. We are co-founders of Just Moms STL. And how many of you have been impacted by the radioactive waste in St. Louis? Oh, wow. Okay. So you may or may not know that for the past couple years, our organization, alongside of St. Louis County and other advocacy organizations, has worked very hard to get this legislation passed and make this available. So it didn't just fall out of the sky. And the way we were able to do that with the help of Senator Josh Hawley's office is this document. So when you are filling out your RECA application, which will be available if you need it from the library and all the branches, you will note that one of the things it says in there is that this legislation from Missouri goes all the way back to 1949. And the reason is the document that you see on the screen. This is the earliest document that we have, that anybody has found, where the federal government admits that it was knowingly causing harm to individuals by letting this waste leak into Coldwater Creek. And I think for the first time ever for many of you, that's one of the more important parts of this legislation that sometimes isn't talked about, which is this is a formal recognition by the federal government for the first time ever that many of your illnesses, those of your loved ones, is caused by the federal government. This is their formal apology. And we also understand that this application has only been open for 14 days. And so one thing that we are asking you all to please do is to extend a little bit of grace and patience with the library and their staff in St. Louis County and us. We are getting to every email, every message. We are committed. And we also understand for many of you that this can be quite painful, going through death certificates of loved ones that have been harmed by this radioactive waste. And so we will be around afterwards, Karen and myself, if anybody wants to just come by and talk to us about that.
And just real quick, one of the things that I wanted to point out, as Dawn mentioned about the 1949 document, and pretty much the reason that you're here, we still have exposures happening. The radioactive material has not been cleaned up out of Coldwater Creek, and Westlake Landfill still does not have a cleanup started as of yet. So we know that the Army Corps of Engineers has not found all of the waste in North County. It is an ongoing process, and we need your help. As you all are sitting here today learning about RECA and the things that you need, we still need your help to push to get that radioactive material out of our community. And we need that cleanup expedited, and we need those levels lowered to the most protective level that it can be allowed. So stay tuned, keep watching, keep engaged, and fight along with us to get our community put back to whole again so that we can stop these exposures and stop the need for RECA. I think we're going to introduce Madeline from Senator Hawley's office.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dawn and Karen. Thank you all for taking the time to be here tonight. As Dawn and Karen said, my name is Madeline Castle, and I am Senator Josh Hawley's St. Louis District Director. And as you all may know, and probably do, passing RECA and expanding it to Missourians has been Senator Hawley's #1 legislative priority these past 2 years. We've talked to many of you, have heard stories, have been working with Dawn and Karen and others in the community, just knowing that this compensation for Missourians has been long overdue. We have been exposed in this community to nuclear radiation and nuclear waste, and that is why the federal government needs to make it right in this one small way by acknowledging the fact that they did that and paying this compensation. So the bill, RECA expansion, was finally passed and signed into law by President Trump on July 4th this year. We are so glad that the application is now live with the Department of Justice. And Senator Hawley recently brought on our new RECA program coordinator, Dr. Amanda Mullenpaw. So excited, delighted to introduce her to you all this evening. She is just going to be working with all of you, and hand in hand, you will see us out and about in the community and working with you all. But as we'll mention later too, we have a RECA hotline, so you can please direct your questions to our hotline. We want to be a resource to make sure it's not just enough to make this legislation get passed and signed into law, but to make sure that everyone who qualifies and everyone who is eligible is compensated. And so I will turn it over now to Danielle from the county.
Hello, everyone. My name is Danielle Spradley, and I am a community outreach liaison for St. Louis County Executive Dr. Sam Page. He's sorry he couldn't be with you tonight. He had a previous engagement. But he wanted to make sure I'm here to share our information with you. This PowerPoint today that you'll see today is available on St. Louis County's website, and we created this document with Just Moms and Senator Hawley's office to make sure that we get you the most accurate information we can. So, what does this mean for St. Louis County? Thousands of current and former St. Louis County residents who have lived, worked, or attended school in impacted zip codes, and I want to stress that if you lived, worked, or attended school, not all three. If you just attended school in this zip code, in the impacted zip codes, or just worked in the impacted zip codes for 2 years before your cancer diagnosis, you can be eligible for compensation. So attended school in impacted zip codes for 2 or more years after January 1st, 1949, and contracted certain cancers will be eligible to receive compensation as either reimbursement for their documented out-of-pocket medical expenses incurred as a result of the cancer, or a one-time tax-free, and I want to stress that, tax-free payment of $50,000. The expansion of RECA also includes survivor benefits. So the surviving spouse of a deceased individual who qualified for RECA may receive a one-time tax-free payment of $25,000. If there are no surviving spouse, each surviving child is entitled to an equal share of a one-time tax-free payment of $25,000. That means that $25,000 will be split among living siblings. And I want to make sure people know with that, if you try to pull one over and ice out a sibling and don't put them on the application, the DOJ will find them. So let's not play games with their families. Right here is a map of the St. Louis County impacted zip codes. As you can see, it's almost all in North County. So individuals who've lived, worked, again, or attended school in impacted zip codes for 2 or more years after January 1st, 1949 may be eligible for a RECA claim. I want to stress also when we talk about the schools or attending school here, a lot of St. Louis City students were bused out to county schools. That means if you were a city student and you were bused to a St. Louis County school and you have one of these cancers, you are eligible. So what area codes are included? Now, on the full RECA Compensation Act for Missouri, the Manhattan Project Waste Compensation Act that includes Missouri, we have zip codes in St. Louis County. We have one zip code in St. Louis City where the Malincrot area was. And then also in St. Charles County, we have zip codes. So that's 63031, 63033, 63034, 63042, 63043. Do you want me to read all these, or do you think I can? Yeah, sorry, I don't want to waste your time. So what cancers are eligible? So RECA compensates individuals with certain cancers, and these cancers have to be a primary cancer. The cancers on the list have to be a primary cancer. So the onset of the cancer must occur at least 2 years after you've lived, worked, or went to school in an impacted zip code. And the qualifying cancers are any leukemia, provided that the first radiation exposure occurred at or after age 20, lymphoma except Hodgkin's disease. And then here is a list of the primary cancers that are eligible. I think many of you got the handouts from St. Louis County, so I'm not gonna read every cancer on this list, but if you grab that form, or if you get on St. Louis County's website, or Just Moms, or Senator Hawley's website, they're gonna have a list of those cancers. So how do impacted individuals apply? So to apply for compensation under RECA, you'll need to file a claim with the Department of Justice. This is a federal program. I want to make that clear. There's a distinction. This is not a St. Louis County program. So this is through the Department of Justice. St. Louis County does not control this at all, and provides supporting documentation that demonstrates your RECA eligibility based on your cancer diagnosis and exposure history. At this moment, the forms must be physically printed out and mailed in. You can download the form from the Department of Justice RECA website, Senator Hawley's webpage, St. Louis County's RECA webpage, or RECA Missouri Resources.org that has been created by Just Moms STL and Debbie, who has done amazing work that works with them. One thing I really want to point out, because we've actually seen people pulling the wrong claim forms. There are other RECA programs in other states. So Missouri's RECA claim form is the Manhattan Project Waste form. And it's the radiation, if you look at the actual application, it says Radiation Exposure Compensation Program, and let me stress, Manhattan Project Waste Claim Form. And I know there were some copies of it out the door, but the easiest way to make sure you pull the right one is either get on St. Louis County's website. We have a downloadable form that is the application you need, as does MissouriResources.org. So what documentation can be used? So in order to establish presence, you will need to submit a certified or original documentation that demonstrates the presence of the person who became ill within an affected area. So there are many different types of documents that you can use, and depending on if you are self-filing, so you are the impacted individual, whether you are a surviving spouse or whether you are a surviving child, there's going to be different forms of documentation that you're going to need to use. So you really need to read the application, and it is very clear on the application what you can use and what you will need. So we're going to be looking at marriage, divorce records, death records, personal letters, envelopes. So think about this, an envelope, a stamped envelope, is a federal record. It's a federal document. That's why people can be arrested for mail fraud, which is a federal offense if you mess with somebody's mail. Church and religious records, voting records are going to be really helpful in this. Again, another reason why we should all register to vote and vote. You never know when it can come in handy. Personal diaries, school records, different government records, whether that's deeds, tax records, yearbooks, utility bills, medical records, and birth records. And so the necessary documents, again, will differ from whether you're self-filing or filing for a beneficiary. Dawn and Karen, do you want to go into a little bit about the current application or kind of show them? At the end, okay. So how do I know if my document is certified? Because you want to have certified documentation. So certified photocopies are often stamped with the seal of the issuing institution. Typically, these seals are either raised, colored, or signed in ink. So if you have a document that isn't stamped, send us that document. And this is the wording from the application. Or ask the source of the record, so St. Louis County, St. Charles County, the library, to attach a cover letter to the record, signed and dated on letterhead stating that the attached records containing number of pages pertaining to your name or the deceased person's name is a true and accurate copy of a record kept in our files. The cover page must be signed in ink and attached to the relevant records. So for information with St. Louis County on how to obtain documents from St. Louis County, you can visit our St. Louis County's RECA webpage. Dr. Page wanted to make sure that we create a specific space for you all to go to find information, and we have links to other resources on this webpage. So you can access this by visiting St. Louis County homepage and clicking on this icon, or type in stlouiscountymo.gov/RECA. And so this is one of the drop downs on the webpage that shows you how you can contact the recorder of deeds and get other forms of information. So how do you send in your application? Again, right now, you have to download or print out the application, fill it out, and then mail everything in. So you're gonna mail at this address here, and that information is also available online, and it is on the actual application. So if you have the application, you will have this address. One thing I do want to stress is suggesting that you use either certified mail or a private mail carrier to make sure you have a tracking number to know that your document got to DC. Unfortunately, USPS, I used to work in the federal government in Congresswoman Bush's office, and there are a lot of issues with the post office, so I would just get it certified. So with assistance acquiring documents, with St. Louis County, the Department of Revenue, the Department of Health, the Assessor's Office, and Human Resources are going to be a source for deeds, tax records, HR records, birth certificates, marriage certificates, Short form death certificates, I do want to stress, especially if you're filing as a beneficiary, you're probably going to want to get that long form death certificate because typically it's going to have the cancer diagnosis on it, and you have to order that from the state. Also, health records, occupancy permits, and voting records. With your federal and state offices, you're going to get military records, tax records. With the state, the long form death certificate and HR records as well if you were an employee. I'm going to let St. Louis County Library go into what they have available. So people that can help you assist in acquiring documents, municipalities. We know St. Louis County has 83 municipalities, right? North County has a lot of those municipalities, so they could possibly, especially for renters, and I can't guarantee this, maybe have occupancy permits, possibly some tax records and some HR records. Educational institutions and school districts, like if you went to Florissant Valley Community College like I did, they're gonna have those transcripts, and I'm eligible if I am diagnosed with one of those cancers. And they can help you find yearbooks, HR records as well, because a lot of folks worked at these schools. Our medical institutions and your health providers are gonna be the ones to help you find your health records. And then our employers, our labor unions, we know McDonnell Douglas, huge employer in this area, and they are in the impacted zip code. My father worked for them. He's one of the folks that was diagnosed because he was driving on the SLAP site every day for years. So your employers, again, if you worked here, are going to be able to hopefully have your employment records so you can use those. Our faith-based institutions, church records, a lot of times they have a lot of documentation on who attended their churches. Baptismal records, synagogue records, mosque records, any of your religious institutions may have records for you. For application assistance, we want to lean on your congressional delegation, so that's Senator Hawley's office, obviously, Senator Schmidt's office, Congresswoman Ann Wagner's office, and Congressman Wesley Bell's office to help you find federal documents especially, and if getting in contact with the DOJ. So our advocacy groups and nonprofits are starting to stand up and help people with resources on RICA applications, faith-based institutions. The St. Louis County Library is going to be amazing. If you can find volunteer attorneys in universities and colleges. There's one thing we definitely want you to be aware of because we're already seeing it. So we want to be aware of individuals, including those purporting to be law firms and other types of scams, wanting you to sign up with them for claims. We have already heard of applications of instances of individuals who have been contacted with offers to fill out their applications. I want to be very clear in this. By law, these law firms can only charge you 2%. And we've stood up enough resources that hopefully you don't need to go to a lawyer. We want to make sure, because you deserve to get all of your claim. So please, especially if someone's purporting to be a law firm and calling you, we heard instance of it last night where someone called and said they were the DOJ and asked for someone's address and information about the RICA claim form. The DOJ is not calling you, especially if you haven't turned in an application yet. The federal government the IRS is not calling you unless it's a scheduled appointment. So please be aware of that. And I don't know how many of you are on social media or Facebook, but I know my personal Facebook and Instagram, I am getting bombarded with law firm ads about RICA. Please beware of that. If you talk to a law firm, please reach out to one of us first. Because again, you all have waited, you were the impacted individuals, you deserve to get your entire claim, and we're all here to support you to fill out your applications without having to pay out some of your claim that you deserve to someone else. You deserve your entire claim. Also, if you feel a law firm is scamming, we want to see you report that because they will be prosecuted. So the Missouri Attorney General's office, Senator Hawley's office with their RICA hotline, or the Department of Justice, please, if you're getting these calls, you're getting these Facebook ads, please report them. So, if you have any further questions regarding RECA, Senator Hawley's office is going to be your best resource on federal documents and what will be allowed with the DOJ, because they are a direct line to the DOJ. They're our federal agency. Just Moms STL is always here to answer questions. They do an amazing job. And then regarding county documents, our website, and also Dr. Page had us set up a RECA support at stlouiscountymo.gov. I do want to state all of us again, the application's been out for 14 days. We are working to answer all your emails. I have a tracker where if you've emailed RECA support, I have you on a tracker and I know where your email's at, and I'm going to get to it as quickly as I can. And we know with the schools, we want to also give the schools grace. And also, as well as the library and Senator Hawley's office, we are being inundated, but we are here to help you. I do want to mention, because this is such a huge lift on St. Louis County's Department of Revenue, right as senior property tax freeze and regular tax season is coming, Dr. Page will be asking the county council for a supplemental appropriation so that we can bring on more revenue staff to help support everyone with their RECA claims so we can get those documents to you as quickly as possible. So we've got some commonly asked questions. If I'm suffering from more than one type of cancer, do I receive $50,000 for each illness? So my sister, she was in the creek all the time. She has 3 primary cancers. She can only get one $50,000 reimbursement, just one per person. Now that doesn't mean, so if you had, I'll use my family as an example. Both of my parents were diagnosed with these cancers. And so I have 4 brothers and sisters. 3 of them have cancers. So we have 2 claims from our parents where it's going to be split among the 5 siblings. But then with my brothers and sisters, they have their own cancers, so they can also apply for their cancers. So why is my illness not included? And I think Senator Hawley's office and Amanda will go into this in a little more detail. We know that we have more work to do. We see a lot of autoimmune disorders in this area. We see a lot of prostate cancers and other cancers. The RECA expansion covers certain certified cancers that have a well-established link to radiation exposure based on scientific evidence and statistical associations. Unfortunately, there is more work to be done to get other cancers and autoimmune disorders included in RECA. And when is my application due? The application window will close on December 31st, 2027, but filed claims are expected to, so they'll still be reviewing claims up until 2028, correct? Okay. And our trusted resources websites, again, www.holly.senate.gov, Just Moms, RECA Missouri Resources.org, the DOJ, and the St. Louis County RECA website, as well as St. Louis County Libraries, which they're going to talk about, are all trusted resources you can go to get information. All right, so I'm going to pass it over to Brent with St. Louis County Libraries.
Yeah, clap hands. Thank you, Daniel. All right, so my name is Brent Trout. I'm from the St. Louis County Library. I'm the Department Manager of History and Genealogy, and I've been waiting to shine like this forever. So everybody wants to know what good is genealogy? This right now, this is my time. So I'm here to help you. And so first thing you should always know is that the St. Louis County Library is here to help you. We're all over the communities. That we have so many different services. This is what we're here to do. So when we heard we could help with this, we sprung into action, as was mentioned earlier. So how can we help you with your RECA claims? So let's go through that. So we cannot fill out your application for you. I'm so sorry, we just can't do that. So we can provide you an application, but we can't fill that out for you. So we gladly will help you with the documentation that you'll need as far as residency. As St. Louis County Library does not see any patients, we have no medical records. So, but we'll help you with that residency documentation. Also, we will determine the validity of the documentation that we provide you. So that means certification. So we'll help you with that. And we'll give you a free copy of that application at any library branch. One free copy. After that, you get free print credits every month. So if you don't know that, $5, it's so great. Use them all. And also, we will certify those documents as long as we can access them. That's the key thing, is that if you bring in documents that I can't access, I can't go, yeah, those are definitely real. Like, that's true. So, and I'll talk more about that throughout this presentation as well. All right, so the first thing that we did was we created a RECA portal. So if you go to that web address right there, it has a link to all of these resources that we have going on. And not just that, it has a place where you can actually submit lookup requests to my department, and we will fulfill the lookup request and certify the document that we provide for you. So it has a link to our trusted partners as well. It has guides on what records we have available that you can find on your own and then bring to us to get certified. Like these documents right here. Now, I won't bore you with the entire list, but I do want to point out that the public record database exists. So that is a collection of governmental documents that have made it in there. It'll have addresses associated with it. It'll have different time periods. We have city and county directories. Those are going to be your bread and butter for proving your residency. So they are listed by year. It's basically the phone book before the phone book. So it tells a lot of information. We were very giving back in the day. So it'll say your profession. It'll say where you live, who lives with you sometimes. So we have a full run of those up until usually the 1980s, and then we have the phone books, which will also work. And then we can access marriage records to a certain degree, usually around 60 to 65, and then it turns over to the county and the city. And then, so voting records, we have a small amount, but you're gonna go to the Board of Elections for most of those. And my friends couldn't make it tonight, so I will share some more information about that later on in this presentation. All right, so here's that documentation lookup request that I was talking about. We're gonna repeat a lot of information all night long, so if I could make a song about this, remember, if you worked, if you went to school, or you lived within a zip code for 2 years before your diagnosis, you qualify. So multiple ways we can find proof of your residency. So we have to be creative sometimes, and that's what we're here to do, right? So if you submit one of these lookup request forms, which is on that portal, as I mentioned, we will attempt to locate the information for you. Guess what? We're all in this together. Lots of us are working on this right now. It's about a 2 to 3 week turnaround time, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. We're trying our best. We're all in this together. It just kind of sprung out, and we're doing this. We're going to do it. So when we send it back to you, we're going to send it to your email address with an attachment and a certified cover letter that states that this is real, right? So please don't come into the branch saying, hey, I submitted a lookup request yesterday. Where's my stuff? I'm going to say, man, what's your name? When did you do this? I'm so sorry. 2 to 3 more weeks. It could delay things. So we'll take questions in just a little bit. Thank you. So you can come into the branch, and we can help you one-on-one in our department here. We have library staff at all the branches that can assist you, that you can actually go to a computer and pull up some of the resources that we have listed there. But it's going to be here at the History and Genealogy departments where we can really dive in deep, and that's where the county directories are. But I'm going to show you a secret later on. We digitized a lot of these and put them on the internet so you can do all this work yourself and not rely on us, but do rely on us because we love you. So here's what the form looks like, by the way. So you're gonna be saying, man, Brent really wants a lot of information from me. Yes, I do. Please give me all the information. So please provide me where you lived at, if you're filing for yourself, if you're filing for someone else. So if you were a kid in the household, I definitely need your information, but I need your parents' information so I can find where they lived at, because it'll be easy for me to prove that they lived there, and then that you, by extension, being a child of them, probably had to live with them, right? So give me all that information you have. We always say less is more. Not in this case. Give me more. But don't really know about cousins, unless the cousins were living there too. So you can see that example right there. So tips for submitting your request. I already said some of this, but I'm going to say it again because I used to teach school. Provide as much information as possible. Err on the side of well, he's probably not going to want this, but why not? Now, I don't need to know what your favorite TV show is. Maybe Game of Thrones, I don't know. But submit the stuff that will help me find your information. It's very important. So, and I also do want to say, this just opened up. It's 14 days in, right? Okay, librarians are mostly type A people. I want to have shoe boxes full of photos. I want to have a map with a big circle on it pointing where I lived. you don't want to submit that much to the government. Like, you really need to find 2 years. You might want to do 3 or 4, but don't call me and ask for 25 years of residency proof. We don't need that. So less is more, because a human being is going to go through these files and have to go through this. If you overwhelm them with this, it could actually delay in processing. So if you say to me, like, please provide proof of residency for this decade, I will probably send you 4 or 5 years if I can find it, but I'm not going to send you, like, a shoebox worth of documents. I'm so sorry. But you can come in and get that shoebox yourself if you'd like. You know, we're here to help. So, as I mentioned before, please don't call our customer connect and say, I submitted a thing 2 days ago. Where is it at? We are so, if I showed you how many emails I have so far, you'd be like, that's a lot of emails. Yeah, we have a lot. We have people coming in. We love to help you, and I want to help you, but by asking us when we can help you when you've just recently submitted something, just delays it a little. All right, so I'd like to talk about the 3 tiers of access in our county library system for the records that I can help you with. So we have the in-branch access, which is any of our 20 locations. Yeah, we have 20 locations. We're out there. So there's a little map showing all of our locations. Chances are, if you live in the county, you're by one of our locations. So there's another tier at the Emerson History and Genealogy Center. That's upstairs. It's my domain. So come in there and I can help you find some records. We have different records than the branches will have, and I'll explain what has where and what not. So I don't like to go anywhere. I'm not a shut-in or anything, but I want to make sure that you can access all the records you can online that are legal. So at home, we created a digital archive that you can go on to the internet and get a lot of these records that we have in our collection. It's a little, like, we've been working on this for a long time. Time to shine. So all St. Louis County Library branches have access to Ancestry. It's not just a thing that your grandma or grandpa does for genealogy. You need it for these records. So it's going to have census records. Now keep in mind, the only census that is relevant for this case right now to you is the 1950. It's going to show you where you lived, the people in your household, residency stuff, right? So you can find death records on there. You can find some church records on there. So every branch has access to that, and there will be tutorials how to use that. We have a whole virtual classroom. We also serve as a Family Search affiliate. So that is another free platform that you can access tons of records throughout the country and the world, and specifically in our case, church records, limited voting records, things like that that'll be relevant for your search in this. And then we also have access to the Post-Dispatch Digital Archive. So I have to warn you, we are going off the information that's been provided to us. So as mentioned before, there are several other RECA projects going on. So I have gone through the other projects and in cases of what documentation they have accepted. So newspaper could be something accepted. And I'll show you a case of why a newspaper might be accepted later on. So just in case you didn't know our address, you are physically right here. So make your way back right here and visit me upstairs. It'll be great. Or any of my staff. You don't have to ask for me. It's okay if you do. So we are a large local and history and genealogy department. We are one of the top in the country. Toot toot. So we are here to help you. We are well versed with finding documents just like this. So come and visit us. Definitely try to do the things online that you can. Read the guides, but we're here to help. We're St. Louis County Library. That's us. We also have microfilm and microfiche. So I know some of you just only know that from like James Bond movies. It self-destructs after a while. Well, we still have it, and it has tons of information on it, and we can help you access that information. Okay, so here's a little secret. A couple librarians in the room. I'm going to tell some of our secrets, folks. We hate not knowing things. So if I can't find a document for you, I'm going to know who knows where to find the document for you. So when you come to me and you say, like, hey, I'm looking for a voter, I'm going to be like, oh, that's Board of Elections. Or go to Danielle. Call her personally, yes. Please don't. Or you do if you want. So, at-home access. So the crown jewel of our at-home access is our SLCL digital archives. If you look on that screen, I have an example of a city directory, and then I also have an example of a yearbook. Guess what? We have over 1,200 yearbooks digitized from the St. Louis area, and they're on there. You can use that for proof. Get 2 years. Ding, ding, you went to school, yay. By the way, that's John Goodman. So I always like to point that out. I have to put someone who's famous so we don't have any privacy issues. So this is what our digital archive looks like when you first go to it. It's going to have county directories, city directories, yearbooks, newspapers, all sorts of fun stuff. Just click on whatever you're looking for. County directory if the person lived in the county, city directory if the person. And by the way, they're in A to Z order. So like, if your name's Smith, go to the S's. It's very easy. You can also search there too, but you might have to browse because OCR sometimes doesn't pick up that old data, so always take a look. So, if you're at home and you have a library card with St. Louis County Library, which by the way, if you qualify, go get one. It's the best thing that'll ever happen to you, I promise. So, we get access at home to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch collection, the historical St. Louis Post-Dispatch. So, you can go all the way back to 1874 and do research. It won't help you at all with RICA, but it might help you with something else. So, newspapers.com also has access to some years that'll be relevant to your search. Heritage Quest, it's like Ancestry Lite. It will have some census records, 1950 being the only one you really need in this case, and then some other records. Without, you can do Missouri Digital Heritage that has death certificates, long form until 1974. Missouri's really awesome in that way. We actually make death records public at a certain period of time. Family Search is going to have directories, census records, church records, legal records. You can do that without a library card. You just got to do a free account. I promise I'll never spam you. Okay, so I want to get into certification because that's going to be a big question you have because it's very frightening. You have to submit documents that are certified. Well, I have the documents already. How do I certify them? Well, let's go through some scenarios. I can only certify, and not just Brent Trout, but everybody at St. Louis County Library can only certify documents that we can find on a source we have. So if you have, let's say, a death record, and it's from 1974 or before, I can pull that up and say, yeah, I see that. It's true. I'll certify that for you. Someone at the branch will certify that for you. You have to be able to display. If you have the document already, that we can find it somewhere, we can see it unaltered. Now, we're just being honest here, because you never know. You can get Photoshop, and you can put your name in like an 1874 directory and be like, I am 150 years old. We just want to make sure that we're telling the truth. So, this can be done at any branch. I want to warn you, this just started happening yesterday. We're trying. So give us a grace. I mean, we're here to help you. This is a brand new protocol. We're going to serve you the best of our ability, I promise. So, if you do the RICA lookup form, so much easier, by the way. Do the lookup form. I'll find some documents that we have, usually directories, maybe some death records. I'll send a certification letter every time with you. So easy. You don't have to ask anybody. You don't even have to talk to anybody. All right, so if you acquire from another resource, or wait, if you acquire from one of our resources and you are in branch, ask an SLCL staff member to certify the document for you. Remember, the key is I have to be able to go, okay, cool, that's the document, and I'll sign it up for you. Off-site, either submit that lookup request, even if you have the document and it's something you think I can find, submit that lookup request, and we will try to find it and then certify it for you. You can also come into my branch, my department, if it's something that's obscure, and I'll go, can't find it, I'm so sorry. Probably someone over here can find it for you. So, some more tips. And I know I'm repeating myself, school teacher thing. We can only certify documents that we can access from one of our resources. And I'm not saying it has to be a resource that we pay for. It could be a free resource that we use every day for genealogy, but we just got to be able to verify it. So that means, for sure, death certificates after 1974, I can't access them. So if you bring me one in from 2009 that you got from the state, I'm going to go, wow, I'm so sorry, I can't do anything with this. And no one at St. Louis County Library can do it. So you will actually have to get it certified from the state if it's not certified already. Vital Check, by the way, does send certified copies, so if you have to Vital Check, do that. I cannot certify medical records from your doctor. That would be illegal, folks. So I'm not breaking the law. I can't get access to your medical records. So, and I cannot certify your school records unless I can find them on the internet because I don't have any school records in the system. So won't be able to do that. So just think about what I have access to and what I can help you with there. Okay, so another thing. Every different source will require a different cover letter. So if you have a yearbook from Hazelwood and you have a city directory from 1978, you will get 2 cover letters. Do not walk out of a branch without getting 2 cover letters, or else you'll come back and have to enjoy our county library sometime again, which please do, all the time, once a week at least. So the print copy has to match the original source. It cannot be altered in any way. So you can't white anything out and add like, Susie also lived here. It has to be the original source, so please don't alter it. And there may be some wait time. Today we had lined up folks trying to get this done. I'm sorry, we're moving fast. We'll get you, promise. Okay, so we did one of these last night. We had lots of questions, so many more questions than I've ever seen in my life. So, which you're welcome to ask questions of this as well. I hope so. So I just made a little FAQ of things that we got asked last night and I've got asked this morning. I am a patron who utilizes a homebound service and need documents certified. How can you help? Please submit that RECA documentation lookup form. We will send you the form. We'll email it to you. We'll email a certified copy. Is a copy of the signed letter sufficient? So this is a question. The application says in ink, we are providing copies of a signed letter. We're scanning it and sending it to you. Based upon our current knowledge that we've been given, that is sufficient. So if something happens later on, we were told at this point this is what we can do. I apologize, but we're doing the best we can. The organization that I received my documents from did not certify them. Can you please certify them? Well, if I can find them, yes. If not, you will have to contact the organization. Now, I want to tell you, everybody got hit hard, and we were surprised by this. If I could give you a timeline of how we thought things were going to go, a couple weeks ago, my boss sent me an email and said, hey, can you put some resources together? We're going to talk about this soon. I'm like, yeah, great. And then all of a sudden, I got an email, and it's like, yeah, this is going live, like right now. We got to do things. All right, game on. Let's do this. So some of those organizations, like the Archdiocese, may have told you they couldn't certify school records. They are now certifying school records. Now, they're not here to argue against that, therefore it's true. But I promise you, they are certifying things right now. So if you find that an organization is not certifying something, please ask them again, and then we'll go from there. So can these documents be notarized instead of certified? If you read the form, they cannot be. So notarization is not applicable in this case. They need to be certified. So please, save the notary visits for more important things at this point. Okay, so my friends over the St. Louis County Board of Elections couldn't make it here tonight, but they said, hey, Brent, can you do us a solid and talk about us? I love talking about them. Vote, everybody, come on, it's great. It's what we're American for. So if you go onto their webpage, which the link is right there, they're gonna have a section where you can actually do a RECA voter request. So you can get your voting record. And guess what it's gonna have in that? Every time you voted, thank you, being American, and also your address. Hey, you just solved this puzzle. Congratulations. So now I do want to warn, just like us, just like the county, everybody here, tons of messages already. So please give them grace, give them some time. They're going to get to it, promise. So visit the County Board of Elections when you need those voter records. Now, my whole advice to you when you're doing the residency thing, because that's what I'm in charge of for here, is that be creative. Think in terms of like, how can, I'm a detective and I'm trying to find proof someone lived here. What are some cool things that I can do? So, IRS tax records. Remember, you paid taxes, right? If you didn't, I won't tell anybody. So, you can request your IRS tax record, by the way, for the years. So you can send in and request a transcript of all that. It's gonna have your address on there. Yeah, that's one way we can do this. You can also get a copy of your census record. Now, I did say earlier, 1950 was the most public year. Well, guess what? They take one every decade. You can actually request yourself in a census record in 1960, 70, 80, 90, 2000, all the way up to 2020. If you are requesting for someone else, you need to either be like an executive of their estate or have some kind of tie to do that. Now, there is a fee associated with this, but I would recommend if you can't find anything else, those census records are gonna have addresses on them, and they're gonna prove that you lived somewhere for decades. So, but you still need to have like more than one, like, you know, 2 at least. So, now I know if anyone's ever going on a date, you probably look at CaseNet to make sure the person didn't kill anybody. CaseNet actually has records back until 1980, and a lot of them actually have the address of the person involved there. That is another way to prove your residency. There's also something called the Public Record Database, which is a collection of public records, starts back in 1950, goes to current. You can access that through Ancestry, Family Search. It will have addresses and year ranges of when people live somewhere. That's another tool we can use. And by the way, best county in America, St. Louis County, ooh, plug. It has property tax records going back online to 2014. You don't even have to call the office and talk to Danielle. You could get that if it's something relevant right here. It's wonderful, we do it all the time. Okay, so newspaper articles. Now, okay, Okay, I don't have an ego or anything, but I was trying to find a relevant newspaper article, and I didn't want to violate anyone's privacy. So this is me. This is when I was on the honor roll at Fort Zumwalt North Middle School back many years ago, but it shows that I went to school in that zip code. So you can find this too if you look in the newspapers. Also, my mom was so proud. Billing statements. If you have billing statements going back, sometimes you can call companies. I will tell you, I believe my parents have been AAA members for 65 years. They probably have records of this. Credit cards. I mean, I've been discovering for a long time. Bank records. You've probably been with the same. I'm still with a bank from Oklahoma, by the way. I probably could call them. It probably wouldn't help with this, but anyways, we stay with the same bank. They're going to have financial information which have addresses on there. So I just want to give you a reminder that this is our dedicated portal. We are all in this together. Several of us up here are making our own claims because we had family members impacted by this as well. So we're just right here with you. And we want to help you, help everyone else in America that's relevant to this. So this is that portal that has that information. There's that lookup request on that URL right there. Submit that. Do what you need to do. And this is our contact information. The county library is always here to help you, and we appreciate you so much. So whatever we can do to help, we're here to help. But we just can't fill out the form for you. Remember that. So I think that's it for me. Megan, you doing next? There you go.
Brent stood in just a way that if Kristen or I looked at him, we were blinded by a light. I don't know if you weren't looking at him too because of it, but he is so bright, he was blinding us, which is really great. Thanks, Brent. So we are now going to open the floor for questions. I have a couple of friends in the back, Eric, who's really tall and red, and Carrie, who's about the same height as me in black.
Who's not.
They're gonna walk around with microphones. So if you want to raise your hand to ask a question, they will bring a microphone over to you. In order to respect our presenters' time, we will be wrapping up Q&A promptly at 7:45. And if we don't get your question in, this is where it'd be really great to contact our Senator Hawley's office to have your question answered.
You start here?
Yep,
Okay.
start with Carrie.
Hi. I had a question about state records. I've seen contact for the federal government and contact for local, but my grandmother worked for the state for like in the 60s and 70s. She retired from the Division of Employment Security. I don't have a clue where I'd begin to look for those kind of records.
Is this on? Okay, thank you. So when I'm in doubt with state records, and he's going to hate this, but I love it, John Dugan is the Missouri State Archivist. He is the person, the Missouri State Archive is the office I would contact. Like I said, librarians refuse to not know where things are at. So as a really major librarian, he's going to help you find those records. And make sure you tell him Brent sent you.
All right, we're passing over to Eric.
Hi, we're here because we lost our mother to breast cancer 5 years ago, and our father has been battling chronic leukemia. They moved into 63114 back in '88, right before I was born. And my question is on behalf of my dad. He asked about anti-subrogation. So basically whether the healthcare companies, the health insurance companies that my parents were covered or are covered under, if they're going to have, I know it's tax-free, but are those health insurance companies, based on Missouri law, allowed to come after this settlement to recover some of their own expenses?
Okay, sorry. Happy to answer. We're looking into it. Our office is looking into this right now. So we don't have an answer at the moment, but looking into it. So as we said before, like the payment is tax-free, but we're looking into this more. Please feel free to call our hotline too, ma'am, so that when we get that answer, we can make sure to get that back to you.
Hi, I was diagnosed with breast cancer way back in 1985, and I was trying to get my records from DePaul Hospital, and they're no longer available. It's like, you know, it never happened. And the doctors who treated me, the oncologist, the surgeon, my primary doctor, they're all dead. And so anyway, somebody suggested trying, asking them again to go to their archive. So I filled out another form about a week ago, and I haven't heard anything yet. I did find a billing statement that lists all my oncology treatments from St. Luke's Hospital, but it's not the actual diagnosis or anything like that. What do I do?
You should, oh, sorry, and congratulations on fighting that. You should, the Missouri Cancer Registry, so the state cancer registry should have, if you were treated in, a doctor's office or hospital after 1984, they are automatically giving those cancer documents to the Missouri Cancer Registry. There is online, if you just look up Missouri Cancer Registry, they have a contact number. Yes, ma'am, after 1984.
I think Eric's got one on this side.
You were going to mention that the Missouri Cancer Registry is going to be on the library's website as well.
Yeah,
So
all that
that'll be another place
information
that
is
you can
on
find
our
that.
information hub, so we have that link to the website, and I think we have the contact info as well.
Hi. My question is around diagnosis. So I was diagnosed in 2024. So should my documentation be the 2 years before that? I'm just trying to understand what the dates and everything should be as far as the diagnosis.
So you don't have to have had the diagnosis for 2 years. You just have to prove 2 years of residency, but the diagnosis could have been 2 days ago.
Okay, so it's not, the residency and all of that isn't related to the year of the diagnosis?
Correct.
Okay.
Except in certain cases, but in your case particularly, you would document those 2 years of being in one of the affected zip codes, and then also provide documentation of the diagnosis.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, there was a slide saying that surviving spouses could be eligible. Is that the same definition as Social Security, or even if you're divorced?
To our understanding, a surviving spouse would be defined as someone who is married.
Still married?
No, not necessarily. Had to have been married for at least 1 year prior to the diagnosis. So it is possible it could be a divorced situation, as long as you can prove a marriage of at least a year.
Hi.
Yeah, so just reading straight from the DOJ form, it's just the surviving spouse is the individual who is married to the person who became ill for at least 1 year prior to his or her death.
Okay. Hello. Well, thanks for doing this to begin with. But what I wanted absolute clarification on is if you check the box for Rika to check with the state registry regarding, whether or not you're regarding the cancer diagnosis. If you check that box, does that absolve you of all responsibility of turning in any medical records regarding your cancer?
No, it's in addition to the documentation. It's a way for the Department of Justice to have your back a little bit in case you're not able to obtain one of the particular documents that they are asking for, and then they can go to the National Registry.
Hi. Some of these forms are going to be original from what I understand, and we do have some original in our case. How do you get the original forms back? And when the Department of Justice gets those forms, if they need something additionally, will they be contacting you?
So to our understanding, you will receive those documents back. As to how, in most cases like this, it's by mail, but we don't know for sure. We're working with the Department of Justice in real time to get answers to some of these questions. And I think there was a third component of that question.
Oh, they should contact you.
Oh, yes, if something is needed, they will reach out to you.
Hi, I have two questions. This is for my mom who passed away. She was married twice before my father and before she was in the affected area. How do I look up those kind of records? Is there a good resource at the library or somewhere for marriage? And then the second part is I have 5 brothers and sisters. They're scattered. On the form when we fill out for the descendants, because my father passed away first, do those birth certificates and documents have to be certified also originals? Like if we get them from the state, those are original? And then second is, how do we get the signatures, because everybody's scattered, and get them notarized because everybody's across the country? Thank you.
I'll handle one part of that. So for the older marriages, what part of the area?
That we don't know.
Okay.
Because she got married, ran away from home, got married.
Oh,
I'm sorry. She ran away at 16 and got married, so we think it was Arkansas, but we're not sure.
Well,
And then her
so-
second marriage, she never talked about it, right? So we don't know.
This is a genealogy puzzle, and we love them. So
Okay.
I would say you need to come in and do some old-fashioned genealogy and
Okay.
see if we can trace that. And once we trace it, if we are able to, then we can find out where you'll get those records at. And then addressing the other things, I believe, if they're coming from the state, they're original, they are certified. Yeah, so it's just if you have copies that don't have seals and all those things. So I hope that helped.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. One is medical records from when my mother passed away 68 years ago. I do have the death certificate, but it's the one I downloaded from, Missouri's website, which you would still have to certify.
So since you're going to send it in and needs to be certified, if it's on the Missouri website and you just tell me who it is, I can actually certify it for you. So
I wouldn't need medical records because the cause of death is on.
oh, if it's listed right on there and it's one of
Yeah.
those qualifying ones,
Yeah.
you should be fine, yeah.
And one other question. Before she married my father, she was married, and that man was killed in France. I do have the marriage certificate, but it's with her previous husband's name, not her maiden, her birth name.
I don't see that being an issue. We could always find genealogy records like the other marriage record or, just illustrating that. Divorce records are tricky in different states.
Yeah, well, this wasn't never a divorce.
Okay, so.
He was deceased.
So I believe this genealogy will help there. I don't see that being a big issue, just as long as you're documenting both cases.
One quick one more. Her birth certificate's from Illinois. Would I need that?
It would not hurt, to be honest.
Okay, I might probably have to go to Illinois for that.
So you can actually, if it's an older one, a lot of them you can request.
Yeah, 1913.
Yeah, it's IRAD, I believe, who handles them over there now. At that point, you should be able to request that and get one of those.
Okay, because I have found a lot off of that Family Search.
Yeah, good job using Family Search.
All right, thank you.
Hi, thank you. So my question is that I got diagnosed in 24, but I've moved away from the area like 6 years ago. Is it just a fact of proving that I lived in the area and just like tax records, and that's all that I would need, or?
Yeah, just 2 years of you living in the impacted area before your diagnosis, and you're golden. So tax records, directory records, anything that's going to highlight that you lived in that area before that diagnosis, from what we understand.
Okay, so I got diagnosed in 24, so are you saying that if I wasn't living in the infected area in 22? Is that what you're saying? Oh.
Just got to show that you lived in the impacted area for 2 years. So if you can find 2 years before that diagnosis of you living in one of the impacted zip codes, that should suffice.
Yes.
Okay, I am a two-time breast cancer survivor, thank you. But, okay, so I lived in North County between 78 and 86, and it's not covered on one of these zip codes. But 4 years later, after I moved out in 86, I got infected with breast cancer. So I was wondering, why isn't my zip code, which the zip code before it and the zip code after it is listed on the impacted zip codes, but the one I was in North County is not?
Yeah, so thank you, ma'am. And again, yes, you're a survivor, which is wonderful. So we had to fight really hard for the zip codes that we got covered, and we know there's so many more where folks are, having illnesses and struggling and everything. The zip codes that we chose, we had to document, and so we have documentation for those zip codes that radioactive material, that nuclear waste from the Manhattan Project was in those zip codes. And so that is why those are the zip codes that are covered. If there is other documentation that comes to light that allows us to add additional zip codes, then we can go forward from there. But right now, the zip codes that are covered are the ones that have clear documentation for that.
Can I text you my zip code?
Yes, please tell me your zip code, and if
You want me to tell you out loud or tell you by
you can
text?
tell me afterwards, that's fine.
Okay.
Yes, please.
I worked in Earth City, but that was after I was inflicted with breast cancer. So that's my issue too. And I moved back to Bridgeton after I was inflicted.
What about school when you were a kid?
School, now when I was a kid, it was city.
The physical school, did it happen to be in the impacted zip code if you're that close? No.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. It's a two-parter. So we're filing for our parents, so we do one application for each parent, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And also, do we just pick one zip code? Because my parents lived in at least 4 of the zip codes. So do we need to include all those zip codes that they were involved in, or just the one that was the longest, possibly?
Just one. I
Just
mean,
one? Okay.
like Brent mentioned earlier, what you don't want to do is overload them with information because that's going to take longer.
Okay, no, that's fine. We were just wondering as we were looking at the film, because they had like 4 zip codes they were working and living in at the time. So we'll just pick the one that's the longest. Okay, thank you.
Hi, thank you. So I'm talking about a family of 5. Both parents are deceased. One of their sons is in remission, so it leaves 2 more. What happens if you send in your application and you receive compensation, and then a year or 2 down the road, one of the other boys gets cancer?
Yeah, so down the road, you're saying that, like, okay, so you apply, receive the compensation for the parents and for the individual who had cancer, and then down the road, if another sibling gets it, yes, then you can apply, that sibling could apply for that one. If it's still before the current application closing deadline is December 31st, 2027. So at that time, then Congress will have to reauthorize RECA. And yes. So it's been continually reauthorized since the 1990s. So, and Senator Hawley will be fighting, for that. But as of right now, we want everyone to get in when they can before the deadline.
Yes, thank you for doing this for us. I have 2 questions also. I read on the site that for the beneficiaries, the death had to be caused by cancer, but that's not what I understood tonight. That is what it says on the site. And no, I'm wrong.
I think what she's asking is, does a person have to have died from cancer, or do they just have to have had cancer? and it's just
No,
that
they
they
just
have
need
to
to
have
have had
had
the cancer. Correct.
And my other question has something to do with the question earlier. If I'm diagnosed with another form of cancer, will my insurance company, probably Medicare, pay for it if I get reimbursed? With a second diagnosis? Because they always ask if you have black lung disease, if you've ever been compensated for black lung.
This will be a question that we will want to bring before the Department of Justice. As of right now, the way we're reading the language in the application is that this is entirely separate from any other insurance compensation or whatnot. This is the federal government compensating people and delivering on the justice that is due to them. But this is something that I will definitely be asking the Department of Justice.
Thank you.
My question is for Danielle. Hi. I worked at McDonnell Douglas from 1967 to 1980, and I have no way of accessing my employment records from there. It was at the airport. I looked on the internet, and they've got a human resources number that's plastered all over, but it's an incorrect number. It's for their emergency employees number. And they refer you to a work life, and they're an outsource that says, no, I can't help you.
Okay, will you email me at ricasupport@stlouiscountymo.gov, and I'm gonna connect you to Boeing's government liaison, and I'm gonna put pressure on him and annoy him to help you.
Okay, what was that website?
ricasupport@stlouiscountymo.gov.
Okay, thank you.
And then maybe Brent has other ways if they don't have that, in case Boeing doesn't have it. I don't know, my father also worked there, so I probably need to figure that out as well. But maybe Brent has some other options, possibly.
I definitely could be creative and see what I could find for you. Was it unionized? Okay. See what we can find, and then I would definitely, pressure on government liaisons is always good. So let's go forth with pressure.
If you go, do you have your old W-2s? Like, I keep them, right now, we talked about this last night, I have W-2s spread out in probably 3 different drawers at the moment that I need to deal with this weekend, but some people are, you know, they've got them in an old file cabinet. But possibly, we don't, possibly your old IRS records you could request from the federal government, that's gonna have that you worked for Boeing, right? Well, wait, but it was McDonnell Douglas at the time, because you worked there in the 80s. McDonnell Douglas was in, that was in that zip code. I think we don't need to go, Madeline, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't overthink it too much. Honestly, like Senator Hawley's office and Just Moms has worked really hard to put on the DOJ, don't make this too complicated. And if you were management at McDonnell Douglas, that means you were right at SLAPS, right? You were right at that site. Sorry, SLAPS is St. Louis Airport site. So that should be, I think, sufficient.
Relaying this gentleman's question, he was asking, once you submit an application, a claim form, what is the expected turnaround time to hear back from the DOJ and get your payment?
Unfortunately, I have to be the bearer of bad tidings and say we don't know. We don't know how long the Department of Justice expects to take with each application. What we can assure you of is that the more you follow exactly what's laid out in the application, the quicker the Department of Justice will be able to process your application. You'll make it easier on them. That still doesn't mean it's going to be a super fast process, but at least they won't have to keep coming back to you with questions and needing more information.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for doing this. I have several questions. So one of them is the first page, it says the mailing address. The second page says the residence address. Is that where we had lived, or is that just an additional information about where we live now?
And then a few pages back, you'll see the zip codes listed.
Yeah, okay, I got
Those will
that.
be your exposure zip codes.
Okay, so the residence and the mailing are the same, correct? Okay. Okay, and then I have a marriage license. It says certificate. Does it matter?
I don't think it matters at all.
I don't think so either. I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure. And do you recommend checking the state cancer registry if you have the medical records, or is that?
I would always check that box regardless when you fill out that form. Everyone should check that box. Make them do some work too.
Hi, two quick questions. One, when filing on behalf of my parents, and I know it gets split between all the siblings, one of my siblings cut off contact with the family, and I understand she changed her name maybe a couple of times, so she cannot be found by me. Can I still file, or can I not file because I don't have all the sibling contacts?
You absolutely can still file as long as you provide the information, the most recent information you have about that sibling. The Department of Justice will then do the rest of the work to find that person. You don't have to obtain her signature if you can't.
Hey, thanks for doing this. I wanted to ask two quick questions. You have until December of 2027 to apply. All this information you're giving is really good, but I couldn't get my phone out quick enough. Is it somewhere? Okay. The other thing is this. When I was pregnant, this is kind of sad. When I was pregnant with my third son, I got thyroid cancer. We've also got in-laws, parents, breast cancer. And I lived in just about all the places. A few years back, my son that I was pregnant with has thyroid problems also, and we got compensation from a different Coldwater Creek litigation. Would you still be able to be involved in this, and do you know, or maybe not? Sadly, we went as a mother-son duo to that litigation meeting. This is very upsetting because it says 1949, and they just closed Jana School because that's where my son went to school 3 years ago. They need to do something faster, and I'm preaching to the choir, but that's really unacceptable, that many years and all the people and they knew all the people that were infected. But is that something you can go ahead again and with this, or do you need to?
So that is going to be a partial Department of Justice question, but also, so not having been involved in litigation, being aware that there was some going around, our understanding is that there were other entities listed that were sued, but not the federal government.
Okay.
And so this is compensation from the federal government. So I think as long as the federal government wasn't listed.
That was Mellencrot.
Okay,
He
then,
just told me, yeah.
then you're going to be fine.
Okay.
Then you're going to be fine.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura, and I do have some severe questions, but first I'd like to acknowledge that I've been supporting these two ladies and been in meetings since 2013. I've been battling my own cancer for the last 6 years, and I have record requests and requests of assistance and help going all the way back to 2013 when Holly was Attorney General. I've got cases filed, so many cases filed. And I've also got notification that Department of Justice was going to accept my case on something in regards to my home here in St. Louis, the fraud, the bank fraud. Anyway, but so I want to get with all of you after the meeting. And my question is, how are we going to deal? Okay, this goes way back to 2015, 2016. How are we going to deal with the cancer latency of people when they, in other words, latency, late exposure diagnoses of the cancer? So we know we got to 2027, we're going to expand that, hopefully, right? For people who've
Yes.
been diagnosed. Okay, and thank you. I was up in Libby, Montana when all of the good news was coming out.
So RICA has been around since 1990. Senator Orrin Hatch passed it, and it's been reauthorized every 2 years since then. And so you better believe we're going to be fighting like crazy, and we're already working it. I mean, Senator Hawley's office is already working it with Senator Lujan and everybody else that now has RICA to keep it going. Because to your point, if you're exposed today and the exposures are ongoing, what happens with that latency period the 10, 15, 20 years from now? Yeah. I know.
Okay, I have two comments, first of all. Our brother died from ALS, which there has been some discussion about whether that's linked with cancer, but it's not on the list. That's just a, the other thing is, myself personally, and my sister here, we have both had multiple procedures for removal of precancerous conditions because both of our parents died from cancer. And it's nice to see some verification, obviously we can't apply because none of them reached cancer stage, thank heavens. But we have another question that is kind of complicated. Our mother died from cancer in 1960, and there were 5 of us, and her parents adopted us. All our birth certificates have been changed to show her parents as our birth parents. So the question is, do we file as children of her, or now do we file as siblings of her?
That one's tricky. First of all, I'm very sorry for all that you have both been through. And what I want to emphasize to the crowd, because we understand, because both of our family's illnesses, my son's, all of Karen's illnesses are not covered under this. But I know that Senator Hawley's office with their hotline, and there's an email form, they are keeping track of other things that people have that are not covered, because we know that there is more work to be done. We know there are autoimmune diseases and illnesses. It's very important that if you are not covered under this, but you have a different form of cancer or an illness, please reach out to them. They are keeping track of that. So are the communities across the nation that are facing the same thing, because what we'll have to do is compare what we're seeing that's not covered with other communities and work alongside of them, and then go to the Department of Justice and say, hey, we have a problem here. We are seeing this, and it's not just us in St. Louis. So is New Mexico, so is Idaho, so is Utah. There is a pattern here, and you need to open this up for more to be written in. So, and then I'm going to let Brent, do you want to take the adoption?
So, not going to advise you on how you should file or what you should file as, but if we could look for records that exist before the adoption, mind me asking when y'all were born?
So But the other issue is, on the adoption records, it says that we relinquish all rights. We were kids. We did not do that. We relinquish all rights to any claims on our parents.
Yeah,
So, yeah, so who do we?
DOJ, there's a RECA hotline right there. I would definitely, if you are guided to go off of the parents, we are able to help you look for records, and that's something I can help you do. We will gladly help you do. So if whatever determination is made there, because we could, since you're born in the 40s, there's a 1950 census that's going to list your familial relationship to your parents, and then we can find other associated records, and potentially the original birth certificate listing the names as well, if we have to go that route. So it's all, get a hold of them first and see how they would like you to proceed, and then once the determination has been made, we are here to help, and we'll help you gladly.
Hi, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. I guess my question, I'm going to try to keep it brief. How much information should I send into the Department of Justice? Because we have bank records, we have school records for where my mom taught, we have residency records, we could probably get election records. Do I bombard them with a bunch of information, or do I keep to like 2 or 3?
Pick your strongest, like what you feel is going to be your strongest documentation. Definitely not saying like don't send 3 or don't send 4. Just don't send a shoebox or a banker's box. You know, whatever you feel is the strongest documentation showing that residency, that medical diagnosis, send that on in, and they will. I'm not the government, by the way, but they will contact you if they're like, you know what, we're just missing 1 or 2 more things. And remember, no one has said this yet. We said this last night. I just think it's important to say, like, if you get rejected for this, you can apply again. Like, there's 3, I think it's 3 times you can apply. So they're not going to just reject you because you didn't submit 1 document. I'm assuming they'll reach out and say, hey folks, we need your, dot matrix form. But on the other sense, like if you fail to do what they ask you and they reject you, get some more documents, then get more documents. Build that case, but don't overwhelm them just because they are humans too. We don't have AI processing these. So they've already mentioned, like, we don't know the processing time. I don't either. Nobody here does. So send the strongest proof that you have. Maybe add a couple of things in there, but do not send them 25 years worth of documentation. Not needed at all.
I want to also, as far as other agencies that are going to try to be dealing with getting you documentation, if you request 20 years of documentation or push for that with the county, with the superintendent's office, that's going to take up more staff time, which means that's taking up more time for other people finding documents too. So try to be mindful of that. Like, that's going to take you longer to get documentation from these other agencies if you're asking for 20 years of records or 10 years of records.
One more thing real quick. We have seen online and we have all heard that there are a few people that have said, hey, my cancer is not covered, but I'm going to apply anyway. You get 3 chances to apply. I would just urge you to rethink that because you're using up one of your 3. So if you have a cancer and it is not covered and you know that, just think twice. The better option is to send it to Senator Hawley's office to reach out to us so that we can kind of start keeping track of these things.
Okay, thank you for doing this, first off. We reached out for voting records, and we got our voting records, and it says that, it has our address at the top, and it's got the nice cover letter, but it's got, underneath it, it's got very sketchy records of voting, and I asked about that, and they said it was because back then, the records weren't really that accessible.
The years that they had on there were not the years that we were living at that address that was listed there. So it's not correct. So, and they said, well, that's all we have. So we don't understand why, because we vote all the time.
So for the purposes of filing for RECA, do the years work for your RECA application?
Well, yes, the years worked, but the years that they gave us the documentation for were not the years that we were living at that address.
That's an Eric Fay question.
In the-
I think, right?
We were living in one of the other zip codes at the time, but we weren't living
You
at
were,
that address.
so possibly what could have happened is your parents didn't change their voter registration, and maybe so then when they voted, it just, that
Oh,
could,
no, this is ours.
oh, yours.
This is ours, yeah.
I don't know.
Isn't that weird? And we called and told him that, there was a discrepancy, and he says, well, that's the best I can do.
So as a backup plan, I went to our City Hall, Delwood, and, because we've lived there since '85, and we both had, a form of colon cancer, breast cancer for her, and me, a form of colon cancer. But they don't have records dating back then either, but the city administrator did write a letter, a cover letter that showed that, that said that we've lived there since 1985. But no documentation really to go along with
So
it.
you're 1985, did you own a home in the zip codes?
Yes.
Okay, reach out to me at RECA Support, and I'll
Okay.
send you the information to get a deed from St. Louis County for
Well, I probably got a deed, an original purchase deed.
If you want to send that in, that's fine, or if you want to send a copy because you don't want to lose your
Right,
original.
right.
So email RECA Support at stlouiscountymo.gov,
Okay.
and I'll reach back out, not probably this weekend, but Monday morning.
Yeah.
To be honest. And I will get you the information on ordering a deed copy for 1985. We do have those records.
Okay.
That with the voting year, if you have another voting year, you should be good.
Okay. And then is there, when you think you have all your ducks in a row, is there somebody you can bring your application to, and they can say, well, yeah, or you need to do more homework, or?
So this is the Department of Justice who is processing these, and unfortunately, none of us are representatives of the Department of Justice. So, Senator Hawley's office, we could certainly look. I think anyone would be willing to look, but in terms of going, oh yeah, absolutely, you're covered, you're fine, none of us are going to be able to say that.
I'm asking on the behalf of my niece who lived in Florissant until she was 4, and then they moved to Rochester, New York, and she had thyroid cancer. Do they have to be living here now to apply? Okay. And so the only record I could think of she would have, since she wasn't in school yet, would be a census record from 1990.
There's more. So potentially, depending on religion, there's religious records. Of course, so if you can prove the relationship to the parents and the parents living there and the year she was born, focus on the parents on that route, and then we're just going to associate them together. And I say we because this is a group effort. We'll get this. So census record, don't know what year. So she could request that private census record. What year did she move? When she, 87 you're saying?
They moved in 93.
93. So
No, she was born in 87, and they moved in 93.
So you can request the 1990 census. She could do that because she's featured in there. So that's going to show the address, her, potentially the parental relationship. As if her parents are still around, they too could request their record. Just connect the dots there and then show their residency of the year she's, just some basic genealogy stuff. We got this.
I do want to, on the census stuff, also kind of be careful because, one, this is again why it's important to fill out your census. So when the census people are coming out, please do that. But some folks there may not be. Sometimes there's not. So just hopefully that's an option. But also things like baby books or birth announcements, things like that. Mailed birthday cards with her name on it with a postage stamp and the address. Those type of things, like Brent said earlier, think creatively on some possible records you might have.
All right, I was diagnosed with 2 eligible cancers at the same time with the same oncologist. Do I get medical records just from one? Do I just send my medical records in and let them decide how do I do that?
You really only need one if it makes you comfortable to get 2, but as Brent said earlier, you're gonna need 2 certification letters. So remember that, like if you're gonna, so to save yourself time, you might wanna just pick one of them and get the certification letter for that document that corresponds with that one.
So with this compensation, if you're on disability or anything like that, it won't like kick you off of that type of thing, will it? No? Okay.
I just want to confirm, most of us have My Chart, My Mercy, where we can pull off our, our medical records, but we need to get something certified from our surgeon. So what is the best route to do that? Because they might not know anything about this. Do we just request them to pull the records, or do we bring the records into their office and ask them just to give us a letter of certification?
So I can speak from personal experience on this one. Just printing off a page from a patient portal won't be considered official, but most patient portals actually have a document tab where you can go and it'll generate a PDF to download that is considered more official, or it'll point you to a request button that'll take you to the medical facilities records office, and they will send you the record. Regardless, you will need to send a message through the portal saying, I need an official record and I need a letter certifying that this is an official record, and then they will need to generate that for you.
Be certified? Because we all have to submit a birth certificate, correct? So that has to be certified. And then if we go the route where we, use the library, as long as we put in our, will you provide like our marriage license and the deed, say, or proof of residency? Because my proof of residency is going to have my maiden name and my
So depending on the year, I would not have any of those records. So they might come from Danielle's side, and I'm sure they would certify those,
Now, can we just go to the location in Clayton, stand in line to get the deed?
Email RECA support, and I will send you how to get the deed, get a certified copy. If you're standing there, you're gonna need to make an appointment, because especially, what year would the deed be?
1964.
1964.
Under
So-
my parents' name.
So that's on microfiche. So that's gonna take research. So your best bet, you can't order it online with that type to get the certified. So just email the RECA support email with the county. And I will send you how to get a certified copy of your deed or that deed.
Can get the marriage license.
Yeah, we have marriage licenses as well.
Okay. And if that was 1986, is that something we have to, is that on microfiche too?
The marriage license, I don't know off the top of my head. You're the first person that's really asked me.
Well, because like I said, my residency is going to be under my maiden name, and my surgery is going to be under my married name. So I have to show proof, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, but email me and I'll send you the information on getting those records.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. The death certificate that we have for my parents, both of them, it has their cancer listed on do we need the medical records as well then? No, just the death certificate? Okay. The long form? Okay.
More short question. Carrie's running. She's got it here.
Hi, sorry. I've got 2 very quick questions. One is my developmentally disabled brother would also be eligible to be recipient, but he's on a Medicaid waiver for housing. Is that going to affect his housing? Okay. And then my second question is, somebody told me I had to have long-form birth certificates for everybody in the family. Is that accurate, or can I just use a certified birth certificate that I got from Berkeley? Okay, so I don't have to have long-form birth certificates for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, so that is going to conclude our questions. Thank you for joining us. So in the interest of time, we are going to conclude this Q&A. If you did not get a chance to ask a question, you are encouraged to reach out to Senator Hawley's hotline, which is listed on the screen. And then as Danielle has said, the RECA support at stlouiscountymo.gov is a great place as well. We'll be hanging out for a couple of minutes, but we will be out of this building by 8. So we appreciate your participation and thank you for being here.